Welcome back to Money Meets Strategy. Have you ever made a decision that felt right, but later the numbers told a very different story? That's what we're going to explore today. The difference between the feel right or the gut-based decisions and the data-based. How do we combine the two? How do we make decisions a little bit better in our businesses moving forward after this? I have a hypothesis I want to share. So, quick stat from a quick Google search. Um, in the first year of a business's life, 20 to 25% fail. Within 5 years, that number goes to 50%. Within 10 years, that number goes to 65%. Here's my hypothesis, especially for those that survive past that first year. The reason they're failing, I believe, is not because they have a bad service or a bad product, or that there's no market demand for their service or product. I'm sure that's part of it, but I don't think that's the main reason. The main reason I believe they're failing is because they are stuck in survival mode. They're in this cycle of paying their bills, making the money, collecting the money, and they don't actually know how to direct that in a certain direction. And they're in that mode because they're making gut decision after gut decision that seems right, but is not backed by data to help them actually move in a direction that they want to go. That's my hypothesis. That most fall victim to this gut decision, and that's why the percentage of that failure is so high. And so, what is this gut decision? And is it bad? I would say it's actually not all bad. You are an industry expert in your field. You probably come with years of experience, and that has produced within you an intuition and experience that you understand the waves of your industry. You understand maybe instinctually what's a good opportunity and what's a bad opportunity. And I've seen companies that have grown to a pretty substantial size, largely based off the owner's intuition because of how well versed in their industry they were. And so, to a certain extent, a gut decision will get you to a certain level. It just might not get you all the way where you want to go. You will probably recognize that at a certain level that you do have to make decisions on a regular basis within your company, and you have to make them relatively swiftly, right? You can't just sit on decision after decision for long periods of time and think that you're going to go in a direction that you want to go. There's also a reality, I know for many of the businesses we work with, that data isn't always super reliable or available to depend on. So let's get into that a little bit here in a minute to see how maybe we can overcome that. Um, Largely, what I find though is that decisions are heavily impacted by the emotion, right? I'm super excited about this opportunity. Let's jump on it. Or I'm super nervous about taking that risk. Let's hold back on it. Maybe you should take that risk. So let's get into, um, the database decision, because there's another side of the spectrum here to where every little decision has to be analyzed. And that might not necessarily be the best way to go about it anyways. So when I'm saying database, I'm not necessarily talking about, some people hear that and they think, oh, I need to go create KPI dashboard after KPI dashboard on every industry metric available. I need to make sure I'm hitting those industry metrics to the T in order to compare well with my peers. I need to go hire the professional and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to help have them use AI to combine my data from 25 different platforms into one place to create a dashboard. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. And for most small businesses, especially, that by no means is going to be a good, healthy practice and what you need to focus on probably as a first priority. What I'm talking about is just the key financial metrics. If we just start there, revenue, gross profit, bottom line profit, net cash flow from operations, and the enterprise value of your company, how all of those first four impact the enterprise value. When a decision comes up of, hey, I have this employee that I might want to hire, or I have this piece of equipment might want to do, or I might want to merge or acquire this other company or this book of business. How does that fit into those key financial metrics? Let's just start there, right? How does that impact your gross profit? let's figure out what that looks like. If you are in a process of looking at these things on a regular basis and you have a good working financial model, it should be relatively quick to, especially on a big decision like that, plug those numbers into that financial model and see if it's a produces a picture that you like. So how do we go and make this shift? We have our gut-based decisions, the things that we're excited about. How do we add a little bit of data and a little bit of strategy to get where we need to go? And what might it look like in real life? And so let's start. I would recommend start with your gut. What looks like the good decisions that are on the horizon? I've heard it referred to as your parking lot of ideas. Park the car in different spots. Park multiple different cars in the spots. Here would be all my list of ideas that on the surface seem like they could be really great opportunities to do. Let's then one by one combine those into just some basic financial metrics, right? How does it impact revenue? How does that idea impact the gross profit, the net cash flow of the company, the value of the company? Just at a basic level, how does it impact those things? As a first filter of is it a good idea or bad idea? Now, let's say that it impacts it negatively. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad idea. It just means now the strategy part comes in. How do I mitigate the risk related to the negative impact that I might see? Is there a way that I could make this work to where this maybe at first glance good idea and then second glance maybe not so good idea? Is there a way I can produce some strategy around it? Maybe the timing of the purchase or the hire or the acquisition that turns this into an awesome idea, mitigates the risk areas right away. And so if we want to make that shift today of, okay, how do I move from my gut to a little bit of data to applying this to my strategy? Uh, Take the ideas that you have, apply them to your financial model, run them through, see if it's a good idea, have your CFO do that, and then talk through it. Okay, here's where it looks like a good opportunity. Here's the areas of risk. How do we now create a strategy to mitigate the risk and maximize the opportunity? And so I'll give you a real life example here. I was working with an auto shop. At one point, they were struggling in their profitability. The owner's gut told him, this is a revenue. I need more revenue in order to increase my bottom line, increase the net cash flow of my company, and increase the enterprise value of the company. That may have been true. That wasn't necessarily a bad gut decision. And I will say it was a decision that was in line with what the owner was particularly skilled at. He was really good at bringing in more revenue, motivating his service advisors to generate more revenue. And so what he did, and in this case, he ran with that gut-based decision before applying any data to it. Uh, he created an incentive program to really get his people excited. Hey, let's maximize our opportunities, and revenue grew. Now, the incentive program he put together, though, his unprofitability also grew as he applied that. As his salespeople were successful. And so what we were able to do, right, is okay, let's actually back up here. Let's run this through a model that's a creative incentive program that actually works so that as your people increase revenue, you actually become more profitable. And it put him on a much better footing moving forward to be successful. And so that's a quick example of, hey, I think I got to grow revenue to get out of this problem. Cash flow is tight. Let me just run for it. Let me motivate my people, give them more money to be able to grow the revenue. And what really needed to happen is backing up a little bit, analyzing that incentive program, how it affected the gross profit, how it affected the net profit, and how it affected the net cash flow of the company, and get him on a much better place. And so, where can you start? Where can you maybe walk away with some practical steps here? Again, create that list of ideas. Uh, there, there's probably some gold in that list. Apply it to your financial model one by one. Give that list to your CFO. Have him or her chase down those ideas. Apply it to the financial model. Understand the impact on those just basic key metrics. Don't get overwhelmed by all the metrics that are out there. At certain points, some of those might be helpful, but at this level, let's just see how it impacts ultimately the enterprise value of your company, and then pursue. create the strategy and pursue the ideas that work well. So hopefully that was helpful. Look forward to talking to you next time.